forced to marry a dying 90-year-old. At the altar, he suddenly ripped off his mask. He was 25. The cathedral's ancient stones seemed to whisper secrets as Emma stood at its entrance, her fingers trembling around a bouquet of cream roses. At 23, she should have been marrying for love, not to save her family from ruin. "Remember, Emma," her father had said that morning, his voice heavy with shame. "Just endure the ceremony. Lord Ashford is 90 years old and dying. The doctors give him weeks at most. Then the debt will be forgiven, and you'll be a wealthy widow." Now walking down the candlelit aisle in a golden lace gown that felt more like a prison than a dress, Emma could barely see through her veil. The congregation's murmurs felt like judgment incarnate. She focused on the hunched figure waiting at the altar, a man in dark robes, leaning heavily on a wooden cane, his long gray hair falling past his shoulders. Father Benedict's voice echoed through the vaulted ceiling as he began the ceremony. Emma's responses were mechanical, her mind elsewhere, calculating how many weeks of this farce she'd have to endure. "And do you, Lord Ashford, take this woman?" "I do," came a voice. But it wasn't the raspy, aged voice Emma had expected. It was smooth, resonant, almost young. Emma's eyes snapped up just as the old man's gnarled hand reached toward his face. In one fluid motion, he peeled away what she now realized was an elaborate mask. Gray hair fell away to reveal dark brown locks. The hunched posture straightened to full height. The congregation gasped as one. Standing before her was a man no older than 25, with sharp features, intelligent gray eyes, and a sardonic smile playing at his lips. "Surprise," he said softly, for her ears alone. Emma's bouquet slipped from her fingers, roses scattering across the marble floor. What is this?" "A test," the young Lord Ashford replied, his voice carrying now to the shocked audience. "A test that you, my dear, have just failed." "Failed?" Emma's confusion gave way to anger. "You deceived everyone, "I deceived no one," he interrupted, eyes flashing. "I am Lord Ashford, the 25th Lord Ashford to be precise. My grandfather, the 90-year-old man everyone expected, died 3 months ago. But news of his death was convenient to suppress." Father Benedict stepped forward, bewildered. "My lord, what is the meaning of this charade?" Ashford turned to address the congregation, his voice carrying authority that belied his years. "For 3 months I've posed as my dying grandfather. And do you know what I discovered? That every eligible woman in the county and their families suddenly became very interested in the dying Lord Ashford's wealth." He turned back to Emma, his expression hardening. "Including you, Miss Emma Hartley. Or should I say, especially you?" Emma felt blood rush to her face. "My family. Your family's debt is real enough," Ashford acknowledged. £50,000 owed to various creditors. But did you know that your father gambled it away? Not in legitimate business ventures, as he told you, but in card games and bad investments driven by greed? The words hit Emma like physical blows. She looked toward the pews where her father sat, his face ashen, unable to meet her eyes. "That's not," she started. But the truth was written clearly on her father's guilt-ridden face. "He told me it was the business, that we'd lose everything." "And you believed him," Ashford said, not unkindly now. "Because you're a good daughter. But tell me, Miss Hartley, would you have married the old man you expected? Would you have stood here and bound yourself to a dying stranger for money?" Emma's throat tightened. The honest answer shamed her. "To save my family from destitution? Yes, I would have." "At least you're honest now," Ashford said. He waved toward the congregation. "Unlike the others. Lady Pemberton promised me her devotion while already corresponding with 3 other suitors. Miss Charlotte Waverley hired someone to research my will before our 3rd meeting. And your own father, Mr. Hartley, was already calculating how to invest his widowed daughter's inheritance before I was even in the ground." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Emma saw other faces go pale, other families shrinking in their pews. "So yes," Ashford continued, "I tested you all. I wanted to see if anyone in this godforsaken county possessed a shred of genuine character. He looked directly at Emma, and I learned my answer. Emma straightened her spine, anger finally overcoming shame. You have no right to judge me, Lord Ashford. You who played such a cruel game. You who let me walk down this aisle believing— What did you believe exactly? He challenged. That you'd marry an old man, wait for him to die, and live happily ever after on his fortune? Tell me how that makes you different from a grave robber. The words stung because they held truth. But Emma found her voice strengthened by indignation. I'm different because I was doing it for love. Not love for you, I didn't even know you, but love for my mother, who would be turned out onto the streets. Love for my younger sister, who would lose any chance at education or a decent marriage. You want to know if I would have gone through with it? Yes, because sometimes love means sacrifice. Even sacrifice of your own happiness, your own dignity. Her voice echoed in the sudden silence. Ashford's expression shifted, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. And you, Emma continued, her veil now pushed back, tears streaming down her face but her voice steady. You who have never known poverty, never felt the terror of losing everything, you dare to test us, to judge us for our desperation? You want to know the real difference between us, Lord Ashford? When you gamble, you risk money. When people like my family gamble, we risk our very survival. She pulled off her veil completely, letting it fall. I may have agreed to marry a dying man for money, but at least I was willing to honor that commitment, to tend to him in his final days, to give him companionship, to actually be a wife in all ways that mattered except one. But you couldn't even give anyone the courtesy of honesty. You hid behind a mask and played puppet master with people's lives. Ashford stood silent for a long moment. The congregation held its collective breath. You're right, he said finally, his voice quiet. I am a hypocrite and a manipulator. I judged you all from a position of privilege I was born into through no merit of my own. He turned to Father Benedict. I apologize for this mockery of your sacred ceremony. Then back to Emma, and I apologize to you most of all. You deserved honesty at the very least. He moved to walk past her down the aisle, apparently ready to end this bizarre ceremony. But Emma's hand shot out, grasping his arm. Wait, she said. I have a question first. Ashford paused, looking at her hand on his sleeve, then at her face. Why? Emma asked. Why this elaborate test? There must be more to it than simple curiosity about human greed. What were you really looking for? For the first time, Ashford's confident facade cracked. He looked suddenly younger, vulnerable. I was looking for someone real, he admitted. My grandfather raised me after my parents died. He was the only person who never wanted anything from me except that I become a good man. Before he died, he warned me that the title and wealth would attract parasites, not partners. He made me promise to find someone who saw me as more than a walking inheritance. So you decided to pose as him? I decided to become invisible, Ashford corrected. To see people as they truly were when they thought they were. Looking at a dying old man with money, I wanted to know, would anyone show genuine kindness? Would anyone visit out of compassion rather than greed? Would anyone actually be prepared to honor their vows? Emma understood then. And what did you find? Mostly what I expected: greed, calculation, false affection. He met her eyes. But in you I found something I didn't expect. Truth even when it damned you, and genuine love for your family, even if it led you to a terrible choice. That doesn't excuse what I almost did, Emma said. No, Ashford agreed. But it explains it. There's a difference between selling yourself out of greed and sacrificing yourself out of love. I was wrong not to see that distinction. Father Benedict cleared his throat. Might I remind you both that you're technically in the middle of a wedding ceremony? They both turned to him, having almost forgotten where they were. A ceremony based on deception, Emma pointed out. Perhaps, the priest said, a slight smile on his aged face. But I notice neither of you has said you won't go through with it. Emma blinked. You can't be serious. Why not? Ashford asked. And Emma couldn't tell if he was joking. We're here, you're dressed for it. And I believe I heard you promise to honor your commitments. That was before I knew you were a 25-year-old trickster. And I'm learning you're a 23-year-old woman with a spine of steel and a heart big enough to sacrifice your happiness for your family. Ashford's expression turned serious. I know this has been a farce and you have every right to walk away, but I'm asking you to consider staying. Why would I do that? Because I'm making you a genuine offer now, with all deceptions removed. Marry me and I'll clear your family's debts. Not because I think you're a gold digger, No, now you're not, but because I want to remove the pressure. I want you to have a real choice. Emma stared at him. And what would you get out of this? A chance, Ashford said simply. A chance to court my own wife, to start this relationship honestly, even if it began with lies. I'm not asking you to love me. How could you when we just met? But I'm asking for time. Time to see if maybe, possibly, we could build something real together. This is insane, Emma whispered. Completely, Ashford agreed. But sometimes the insane choice is the right one. Emma looked around the cathedral at her pale father, at the shocked congregation, at Father Benedict's knowing smile, at the scattered roses on the floor. Her whole life had led to this moment, and now everything had changed. She thought about the old man she'd expected to marry, about the weeks of dutiful care she'd prepared herself to give. She thought about her mother and sister, about the debts and the shame, and she thought about the young man before her, who had lied and tested and manipulated, but who was now offering her something no one else ever had, a choice. If I say yes, Emma said slowly, we do this properly. You court me. You woo me. You let me decide day by day whether this is something I actually want. Agreed, Ashford said immediately. And the debts are cleared regardless of what I ultimately decide. Done. And you stop testing people. Stop with the games and manipulation. Ashford hesitated at that, then nodded. I promise. Emma took a deep breath. Then ask me properly. Ashford's eyes widened slightly. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he dropped to one knee right there at the altar, taking Emma's hand in his. Emma Hartley, he said, his voice ringing clear through the cathedral. I have been a fool and a coward, hiding behind masks instead of facing the world honestly. You have shown me more courage in 10 minutes than I've displayed in 3 months. I don't deserve you, and I'm not asking you to love me. But I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust, your respect, and perhaps someday, your affection. Will you marry me today knowing all that you know, and give me the opportunity to prove I can be worthy of you? The cathedral was utterly silent. Emma looked down at this strange, infuriating, vulnerable young man. She thought about all the reasons to say no, and they were many. But she also thought about the way he'd apologized, the way he'd admitted his faults, the way he was now offering her something precious. Genuine choice, backed by action. Yes, she heard herself say, I'll marry you, Ashford. But know this, I'm not doing it for the money anymore. I'm doing it because I think, beneath all your masks, there might be a decent man trying to get out. Don't make me regret this. Ashford stood, a genuine smile breaking across his face, the first real smile she'd seen from him. I'll spend every day trying to prove you right. Father Benedict laughed, a sound of pure joy. Well then, let us continue this ceremony properly. Do you, Lord Ashford, the young, living one, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do, Ashford said, never breaking eye contact with Emma. And do you, Emma, take this man, whatever age he happens to be your lawfully wedded husband? Emma squeezed Ashford's hands, feeling the calluses there, real and human. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Lord Ashford, you may kiss your bride. Ashford leaned in slowly, giving Emma every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a promise rather than a passion. When they broke apart, Emma whispered, Don't think this means I've forgiven you for the mask. I wouldn't dream of it, Ashford whispered back. As they turned to face the congregation as husband and wife, Emma caught her father's eye. He looked stricken, ashamed. She gave him a small nod. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement. They would have words later about his gambling and his lies. But that was for another day. Today, impossibly, she had married a stranger who might become a friend, who might even become something more. She had walked into the cathedral resigned to sacrifice, and walked out of it with possibility. As they made their way down the aisle, Ashford leaned close. "I know we have a lot to figure out." "That's an understatement," Emma replied. "But I meant what I said. I'll court you properly. Starting tomorrow, I'll send flowers, write terrible poetry, take you on chaperoned walks, the whole traditional process." "Tomorrow?" Emma raised an eyebrow. "What about today?" "Today?" Ashford said as they stepped out into the spring sunshine. "I thought we might start with honesty. Tell me about your family, the real story, not the version your father told you." And so they did. Standing in the churchyard, still in their wedding clothes, they talked. Ashford admitted the full extent of his deception and the loneliness that had driven it. Emma explained her family's struggles and her own fears and dreams. They talked until the sun began to set, until the guests had all departed in confusion and curiosity. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was real. And real, Emma thought as she looked at her new husband's face. His actual unmasked face was something worth building on. 3 months later, Lord and Lady Ashford would host their first ball together. Emma would wear a different golden dress, and Ashford would never hide behind masks again. People would whisper about their strange beginning, but they would also see the way the young lord looked at his wife, and the way she smiled back. Not the smile of someone who'd married for money, but of someone who'd found something far more valuable. But that was later. For now, in the fading light of their wedding day, Emma and Ashford simply held hands and talked. Two people beginning the difficult, beautiful work of turning a marriage of deception into something true.